There are loads of video games that come to us from Japan, and it can feel as though it's impossible to keep up with them all, and yet there are still more that never see the light of day in the Western world. Whether it's because the cultural differences were deemed too large to adapt effectively, or there wasn't perceived to be any interest, there are a huge number of titles that other audiences never got to experience, and we've picked just 10 of them to highlight today. To be clear, we're referring to games that were never officially released or localized, but that doesn't mean that dedicated fans haven't actually created translations of their own. We've also tried to avoid titles that were originally Japan only, but have since been ported to other countries in later years, and those that have localizations planned for the future. So, with all that out of the way, let's take a look at some games that were never given the chance in other markets. I'm Peter from TripleJump, and here are 10 great video games that never left Japan. Number 10. Policenauts. Hideo Kojima is nothing if not well known at this point, but there are several games of his that aren't as famous as others. One such example is the sci-fi adventure game Policenauts, which first released in 1994 for the NEC PC 9821, and later for the 3DO, PlayStation and Saturn, though still not outside of Japan. Policenauts is heavily influenced by American buddy comedies, and follows Jonathan Ingram, a former officer and astronaut-turned-detective who was recently recovered over 2 decades after an accident saw him stranded and drifting through space in a state of cryosleep. So far, so Kojima. One day, his ex-wife Lorraine, who has understandably presumed him dead, visits him and asks that he can investigate the disappearance of her current husband. While initially reluctant, he is pulled in when Lorraine is murdered very soon after, and his investigation ends up leading him right back to the space colony he literally drifted away from all those years ago. Official English ports were considered at one point, but these were eventually cancelled thanks to some technical issues with the translation. It wasn't until after the success of Metal Gear Solid that dedicated fans were able to bring this title to Kojima lovers years later in 2009. Number 9. Tales of Rebirth. The Tales series is one of the most important JRPGs in Japan, and even in other countries, the games have become increasingly popular ever since Tales of Symphonia released in the early 2000s. Even so, not all of them have been localized, and one such game is Tales of Rebirth, released in 2004 for PS2 and 2008 for PSP. The story follows Vague Lundberg, a young orphan who has grown up in the home of his friend, Claire Bennett. At the start of the game, the King of Karagia has been poisoned, and in one final act, releases all of his power and causes many of the inhabitants to become possessed by what's known as Force. Because of this, Vague ends up with the Force of Ice and accidentally seals Claire in a pillar of the cold stuff as his powers awaken. 1 year later, 2 adventurers, Mao and Eugene, appear and help him to destroy the ice, but Claire gets kidnapped afterwards, and the 3 set out on a journey to rescue her. Fans of the series have been disappointed about all of the entries that they've had to miss out on over the years, but with Tales of Rebirth having one of the best review scores of any of the games, it's this one whose absence stings particularly badly. Number 8. Magical Vacation. Magical Vacation may actually be familiar to some of you because, for whatever reason, the sequel, Magical Vacation Itsutsu no Hoshi ga Narabu Toki, did end up making its way out of Japan with the title thankfully changed to Magical Star Sign. Strangely, the first game never received the same treatment, even when it was re-released in Japan 5 years after its initial debut. In this turn-based RPG, players start by choosing their character and one of 13 different elements which change the game's difficulty depending on their affinities. The main character was shunned when he was young because he can talk to spirits, but one day an elderly wizard visits and reveals that he is the head of the magic school Will-O-Wisp and invites them to come and study the elements there. When they arrive at school, they learn that the students are being sent to the Valencia seaside, despite there being disappearances in the area. Once there, a monster known as Enigma appears and abducts some of them, and the hero ends up having to find all the missing students and learn how this monster relates to the Kingdom's secret war from years ago. Fans had to wait 15 years before a fan translation appeared in 2016, but are now finally able to go on a journey of their own. Number 7. Second Super Robot Wars Original Generation. The Super Robot Wars media series is a massive one, encompassing over 40 releases across games, manga, and anime in a lifespan of just over 30 years. However, due to complicated licensing issues, almost all of the games have remained exclusive to Japan. One of these is Second Super Robot Wars Original Generation, not to be confused with Second Super Robot Wars, Second Super Robot Wars G, Super Robot Wars OG2, Super Robot Wars OG Saga, Super Robot Tyson Original Generation, Super Robot Wars OG Gaiden, or Super Robot Wars Original Generations. Everyone clear? No, me neither, but let's move on. This particular installment of the tactical RPG series was released for PS3 in 2012 and sees mechs and their pilots battling it out in the South Pacific. Though their island has been separated from society for a while, a secret defense force known as the Gaia Savers was created to test new weapons and technologies, and after some time, they end up having to fight off an invasion from multiple different enemy groups. This is about all we can tell though, as this series does so many crossovers and references to itself that it's a bit of a mess to make sense of for outsiders. However, it has big robots battling each other, and that is all I need to know. Number 6. Ace Attorney Investigations 2. The Ace Attorney series is incredibly popular at this point, having started in Japan in 2001 with Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney and first appearing in the West in 2005. Despite the series' massive success though, Ace Attorney Investigations 2 hasn't been brought over at all, and no plans to do so have been announced, despite it being over a decade old, which makes it the only title in the series that hasn't been released elsewhere. In Ace Attorney Investigations 2, players once again step into the shoes of prosecutor Miles Edgeworth, along with the appropriately named detective Dick Gumshoe and teen thief Kay Faraday, as they investigate 5 different cases. As is often the case, the gameplay is broken into 2 main parts, searching for evidence at the crime scene and rebutting testimonies. The 5 crimes all revolve around murders that indicate a presidential-level conspiracy, and see Miles having to fight in order to keep his prosecutor's badge as he continues to investigate cases that he is explicitly told to leave alone. With the previously Japan-exclusive titles, The Great Ace Attorney Chronicles and The Great Ace Attorney 2 Resolve getting fairly recent localizations, we can only hope that this game is also in the running, because I really must object to it being ignored for so long. Number 5. Mother 3. Mother 2, otherwise known as Earthbound, had a rough start when it first came out of Japan, but has since become a massive cult classic and is often regarded as one of the best video games of all time. Despite that though, the sequel Mother 3 has never been localized, owing to Nintendo focusing on promoting the DS over the Game Boy Advance. Like the previous titles, Mother 3 is a turn-based RPG and sees players joining the young boy Lucas as he, his twin brother Klaus, and his mother Hinawa are preparing to return to their hometown, only for the Pig Mask army to swoop in and attack. Lucas's father, Flint, sets out to save his family from the resulting fire, but learns that Hinawa has been killed by a Drago. Because of this, Klaus sets off for revenge on his own, and Flint goes off to try to bring him back. 3 years later, their hometown has been completely taken over by pig masks, and Lucas sets off on a journey himself to gain the needles of the dragon beneath the world in order to completely reshape it. Thankfully, if you want to play Mother 3, there is a fan translation, which unfortunately seems like the only way this much requested title will ever be appreciated by its worldwide fans. Number 4. Jump Ultimate Stars. Jump Ultimate Stars is a fighting game for the DS, and its name refers to the fact that the characters are all from the popular Shonen Jump series, including Bleach, Dragon Ball, and One Piece, to name just a few. It can be quite visually confusing at first, with manga panels filling one screen and the characters duking it out on the other. Essentially, the art functions as a roster during each match, giving players the ability to pick a collection of character panels and place them in a 4x5 grid, whereas the other screen is just a battle arena. Each panel belongs to one of three classes: Battle, Support, and Help. Battle panels are linked with one of three elements: Knowledge, Strength, or Laughter, and represent the playable characters who can be swapped at any time during a fight. On the other hand, Support and Help panels both represent NPCs, with the former allowing for actions such as healing, and the latter providing different boosts. Players can unlock new panels as they progress through the story mode, or can use gems to evolve the ones they already have. It's a shame this never released outside of Japan, as its roster of over 300 characters, many of whom are popular elsewhere, would have been sure to delight fans the world over. Number 3. Tobal 2. Tobal 2 is your pretty standard 3D fighting game in terms of its presentation, with each character having high, low, and mid attacks that can be used to defeat opponents, as well as an unlockable fireball projectile. There are also a variety of arenas. What sets it apart from other titles in the genre, however, is the 200-strong roster of characters and the fact that it runs at a full 60 FPS, which is basically unheard of for a PS1 title. There is of course multiplayer, but the game also features a so-called quest mode with 6 different dungeons and a fully explorable town. Players battle animals in each dungeon, which will provide them with items and experience, or they can instead capture these monsters so that they'll be added to the roster for Versus mode. The game was initially scheduled to be released in North America as well, but was ultimately cancelled, with Square deciding to release Einhander in that market instead. This is because Tobal No. 1 sold poorly internationally, with the suspicion being that most people bought it only to play the included demo for Final Fantasy VII. It's a shame though, because Tobal 2 is a massively impressive accomplishment that deserves to be fully enjoyed by all fighting game fans. Number 2. Oh boy. Kuroyo Ryuga Gotoku Shinsho. In all truthfulness, if Like a Dragon Ishin hadn't got a localized version, that game would most likely have taken this spot instead, it being as good as it is. We are lucky to now finally have a version of that though, and so we turn our attention to one of the only Like a Dragon games to not yet be released outside of Japan. Kuroyo Ryuga Gotoku Shinsho, I think, translates to Black Panther Like a Dragon New Chapter, and is technically a spin-off of the series, following Tatsuya Ukiyu as he battles his way through an underground fighting ring as retribution for accidentally killing a member of the Tojo clan. Conspiracy abounds though, as he may not actually be dead. The combat focuses on one-on-one martial arts and has iconic features from the series, such as heat actions and the ability to use the items in the world as weapons. It also has many of the mini-games the series is known for, though they are a little less in-depth than usual, and part-time jobs make up for the overall lack of money in the game. There is a sequel too, but that also hasn't been localized, so hopefully we'll be able to get hold of that one eventually as well. Fingers crossed the reception of Like a Dragon Ishin will make that more of a possibility. And number 1, Fire Emblem Trachea 776. Fire Emblem existed for quite a while before finally seeing interest and success outside of Japan. This was largely thanks to Marth and Roy being included in Super Smash Bros. Melee, after which the series was finally brought to new audiences in 2003 with Fire Emblem The Blazing Blade, internationally known as just Fire Emblem. Even after this though, there are many good titles from the series that never have and likely never will be released outside of Japan, and by far the best of these in our opinion is Fire Emblem Trachea 776 for the Super Famicom. The game takes place on the continent of Yggdrasil during the time gap in Fire Emblem Genealogy of the Holy War, as players create an army to restore the kingdom of Northern Trachea after their friends are kidnapped by the Duke of Munster and the town they're in is destroyed. This installment retains the turn-based battle system, with different colours representing both the allegiance and status of the units for all parties involved. Each unit is a different class with their own special weapons, strengths and weaknesses, and special moves. As one of the best Fire Emblem titles ever, fans of the series are definitely missing out, but thanks to those willing to do their own translations, all of these games get a chance to be enjoyed. God bless fan translations.